senior delegation of the Russian Federation led by Foreign Minister Mr. Sergey Lavrov and which comprised Mr. Mikhail Bogdanov, Deputy Foreign Minister, arrived in Massawa in the morning hours of 26 January 2023 for a one-day official visit to Eritrea. Minister Sergey Lavrov's visit to Eritrea comes as part of his visit to several African countries, including Angola and South Africa. Upon arrival at the Massawa International Airport, Mr. Sergey Lavrov and his delegation were accorded a warm welcome by Mr. Usman Salah, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Eritrea, Presidential Advisor Mr. Yaman Gabrab, Minister of Information Mr. Yaman Gabra Maskal, and other senior government officials, as well as Mr. Igor Mozgo, Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Eritrea. Boarding a helicopter, the visiting delegation, accompanied by the high-level Eritrean government officials, headed to Asmara to meet with President Isaias at the State House. At the State House, the President discussed important international, regional and bilateral issues with Minister Lavrov. The key issues raised focus on the ongoing and emerging global and bilateral issues and the direction it points in the perspective of both the states. They also dived through tracking constructive engagement in various fields such as mining, information, communication technologies, agriculture, infrastructure, military cooperation, humanitarian matters, and others. As ascertained by President Isaias and Minister Lavrov, Eritrea and Russia have an open-door policy towards each other based on the same understanding of the emerging global crisis and the forces behind it. In addition, the two nations and similar others fighting off foreign interference bind their stand by the principle of sovereign equality of states, as is outlined in the UN Charter and agreed and signed by all member states. President Isaias and Minister Lavrov analyzed the direction and pace of the bilateral relations of the two countries and on the forthcoming platforms that presents both nations into building a fair and just global system that encourages the flourishing of new centers of development, independence, sovereignty, and self-sufficiency. The meeting held an aroma of strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries and an independent quest to uphold international law and order. Furthermore, the talks emboldened the common aspirations of the two governments to cut off the ambitious attempts of the West to relish unreasonable dominance over countries it deems alien or undeveloped. The Eritrean government has been assertive in its approach towards such behavior. This approach was clearly shared by the Russian Federation and other 20 countries in the UN, which is increasing by the day. One of the important steps on this direction will be the second summit between Russia and Africa, which is scheduled to take place in St. Petersburg, end of July this year.
We analyze the state of bilateral relations. They are developing very intensely on the mutually beneficial basis. Its economy, of course, mining, information communication technologies, agriculture, infrastructure, the possibilities of the port and airport of Massaw, the availability of the Russian proposals to develop industries in Eritrea. All this is going to be the subject for regular consultations between the ministries of economy, which we agreed to launch very soon and to make these consultations a regular feature of our relations. We discussed our military and military technical cooperation on the basis of the agreements signed some time ago. We are ready to satisfy the needs of Eritrea as regards maintaining its defense capacities. And we certainly will be cooperating in humanitarian matters. We are ready to increase the number of scholarships which Eritreans receive every year from the Russian government. We discussed African issues, especially from the point of view of resolving several conflicts in the Horn of Africa. We hope that the latest agreement between Ethiopia and the Tigray Front reached with the help of South Africa, with the help of Mr. Obasanjo and Mr. Kenyatta, will help stabilize the situation in the region, which would also be beneficial for stability of all countries situated here. Our main discussion was devoted to the changes, radical changes in international situation. We have consolidated position in the United Nations on all the issues related to the key problems of the world, especially to the problems created by the collective West, as it were, against the Russian Federation and against any country which do not accept the claim of the US and its satellites to have hegemony on international economy, on international politics, and to dictate its will to everybody in line with the famous concept of end of history, whereby liberal democracy is imposed on everybody like the final truth. Our common position is promoted in the United Nations. within the group of friends of the Charter of the United Nations. Both Eritrea and Russia, together with 20 other countries, are participants of this group, and the membership is growing. We will insist on everybody to respect the key principle of the United Nations, which is sovereign equality of states. This principle is being grossly violated and disregarded by the US, NATO, and the European Union, and this principle must be respected by them, and we will insist on this. Multipolar world is a reality. New centers of economic development, new centers of financial might and of political influence are growing objectively. This is an objective process, and the attempts which are being undertaken to stop this objective course of history are doomed to failure. And of course, we would like to launch a dialogue on the issues which will help unite countries which are law-abiding, which respect the United Nations Charter, and which should be mobilized to defend international law, to defend the values of the United Nations, not somebody's invented values which the West tries to impose on everybody else. And one of the important steps in this direction would be the second summit between Russia and Africa, which is scheduled to take place in St. Petersburg, end of July this year. We hope that President Afewerki would be personally present at this important event. Thank you very much.
Following a brief tour around Asmara, Foreign Minister Lavrov and his entourage visited the Pushkin Monument at the heart of the capital city and raised flowers in his honor.
I was really dreaming of getting to this place. Very good monument. It's really conveys the character which I always felt when I was reading. The character which I always felt when I was reading.
Federation, distinguished members of the delegation, ladies.
Back in Massawa the same day, Mr. Osman Saleh and Mr. Sergey Lavrov conducted a joint press conference for both international and local media outlets.
We are indeed honored by this timely visit, which has afforded us the opportunity to exchange views on international and regional issues of great importance and to further strengthen our bilateral ties. Your Excellency, there are turbulent times. The specter of unnecessary, avoidable and spiraling calamity is looming, larger than at any time in the recent past. In the event, the significance of Your Excellency's visit must be gauged against the backdrop of these unfolding and extremely preoccupying trends and realities.
Minister Osman addressed the havoc of our time posed by climate crisis and how the singular acts of certain forces is snatching our attention away from humanity and leading, through their regressive policies, to war and turmoil. Both the ministers highlighted the two governments' commitment to condemning the US, EU and NATO's unwanted and unnecessary interventions in national matters. This in turn reflected their mutual agreement to promote and uphold the genuine principle of freedom and democracy built on native policies independent to any foreign influence.
Appropriate lessons for what may transpire in the period ahead.
Большое спасибо. Уважаемые дамы и господа, прежде всего хотел бы поблагодарить наших представителей.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, at the outset I would like to thank our Eritrean friends for the warm welcome extended to us, though our visit is brief. We have conducted fruitful talks with the President of Eritrea. Our relations have a long history and they are aimed at ensuring equal and mutually beneficial ties on all tracks.
В будущем году в мае мы будем отмечать официальную дату 30-летия установления дипломатических связей.
In May, we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between our countries.
Отношениях, которые требуют дополнительного внимания.
And today we have considered the projects that are being implemented in our bilateral relations and that require attention.
Мы договорились создать по межправительственной линии механизм консультаций соответствующих ведомств.
We are both interested in increasing trade and economic partnership. In order to do so, we have agreed to establish a governmental channel, a consultative mechanism that will be used to discuss issues in the areas of trade, economy and investment. So we have decided to give an impetus to the contacts between our businesses that are interested in cooperation in such areas as mining, energy, agriculture and ICTs. And at the same time, the intergovernmental mechanism on economic issues will focus on defending our partnership against illegal Western sanctions. Amid promising projects, I would like to mention the logistic potential of the port of Massawa and of the airport.
Аэропорт Масао представляет интерес с точки зрения его транзитных возможностей. Подтвердили планы, которые реализуются в сфере военного и военно-технического сотрудничества.
Port Massawa is of an interest from the point of view of its transit capabilities. We've also discussed our plans in the area of military and technical cooperation. We have agreed to consolidate the legal framework, so we decided to speed up the adoption of some agreements that are being considered by both sides, including the Memorandum on Cultural Cooperation and the Agreement of Mutual Recognition of Diplomas.
Мы видим перспективы взаимовыгодного сотрудничества по линии породненных городов. Такие связи есть между Асмерой и Екатеринбургом, и между Масао и Севастополем.
So the latest document is of an interest for Eritrean students who are getting education in Russia. Next year there will be 22 scholarships and we intend to increase this number. We see perspectives in consolidating ties between cities that have sister city relations. I'm talking about the relations between Massawa and Sevastopol and Asmera and Yekaterinburg. We have the closest cooperation on regional and international affairs. We are both committed to the basic principles of the UN Charter, including the sovereign equality of states and non-interference into other states' affairs.
Мы признательны нашим эритрейским друзьям за последовательную поддержку российских инициатив в Организации Объединенных Наций. Многие из них, по многим из них
We are against the attempts to impose on people's recipes that are foreign to them, and we are for their ability to choose their own path and their own solutions. So, to this end, there has been established the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter. It's functioning in New York. It includes 29 states, including Russia and Eritrea. We are grateful for the subsequent support extended by Eritrea for Russian initiatives in the UN, and Eritrea is a co-author of many of them. We would like to highlight the well-balanced and considerate attitude of Eritrea towards the events that are taking place in Ukraine and around it. We agree that Ukraine is used as a tool by West, guided by the United States, which wants to mobilize all Western countries to protect its dominance. We've also discussed the situation on the African continent, including in the area of the African Horn.
Особое значение в этом смысле будет иметь готовящийся к проведению в июле этого года в Санкт-Петербурге второй саммит Россия-Африка, куда, разумеется, приглашен и президент Эритрии.
We welcome the efforts made by Somalia and Ethiopia to normalize the situation in these countries, and we are ready to support them. Nowadays, when Eritrea and other African countries and other countries, developing countries of the world are trying to undertake measures to shape and to consolidate its identity, ties between Russia and the African Union can be very relevant. And special importance is attached to the second summit, Russia-Africa, that will take place in July this year in St. Petersburg, and we've obviously invited the President of Eritrea. We've also visited today the place where there is a monument devoted to Pushkin, and there was a very touching ceremony with the participation of locals, of local pupils. It was accompanied by very good music, and we are entirely grateful to Eritrea for treating carefully the memory of the squad that unites our two countries.
Южноафриканской республике, в Эсватине, в Анголе, здесь, в Эритрее, мы слышали.
Now we are summarizing the opinions we get from African countries in order to establish a detailed agenda for the summit. So this agenda includes 4 major sections. These are food security, energy security, transfer of technologies, and healthcare. These are obvious priorities for the whole world and for Africa in particular.
Готовящиеся сейчас договоренности к Петербургскому саммиту будут обобщены в политической декларации и в плане действий на 2024-2026 годы.
This question is for His Excellency, Mr. Lavrov. The world is increasingly moving from one of unipolarity to multipolarity. How do you assess the potential for this shift to creating a world that is more just, democratic, and based on the equal sovereignty of states? Moreover, what role do you foresee for Africa within this newly developing arrangement? Thank you.
Формирование многополярного мира – это объективный и неостановимый процесс.
The establishment of a multipolar world is an objective and unstoppable process.
Находящиеся полностью под контролем США, блоки НАТО и Евросоюз все-таки пытаются обратить этот процесс.
Though the collective first, the United States, NATO, and the European Union that are under the control of the United States are trying to reverse this process, their efforts are fruitless. The maximum that they can do is to slow this process down.
Предъявляет не только в прежней зоне своей ответственности, но уже и на весь Азиатско-Тихоокеанский регион.
And obviously we see the claims made by the West not only concerning their former area of responsibility, but now the whole territory of Western countries.
достойным лучшего применения, требует от африканских стран не сотрудничать с Российской Федерацией.
We see a lot of delegations from Great Britain, from the United States, from different European countries who come to Africa and who are very stubborn and want to achieve the following thing. They want to make African countries stop all the cooperation with Russia and not to deviate from the common discipline. And their eventual goal is to come back to the colonial system.
В Украине не смогут остановить развитие новых центров экономической мощи, финансового влияния и политики.
Mentoring visits, no hybrid wars, including the one that they started in Ukraine, will impede the shapement of new political and economic powerhouses.
В качестве влиятельных самостоятельных центров развиваются и Турция, и Египет, страны Персидского залива, Бразилия, другие латиноамериканские страны.
Such countries as China and India in many respects surpass the United States and European countries. We can name such countries as Turkey, Egypt, Brazil, other countries of Latin America, Gulf countries. These are future centers of multipolarity, and of course Africa is also a center that has a tremendous potential.
Политику по отношению к Африке Запад предпочел бы сохранить и на данный момент. Thank you for your hospitality.
The senior delegation of the Russian Federation, led by Foreign Minister Mr. Sergey Lavrov, and which comprised Mr. Mikhail Bogdanov, Deputy Foreign Minister, left for Moscow from Massawa in the evening hours of the 26th January 2023, concluding a one-day official visit to Eritrea.